going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. So today I wanted to talk about the final verdict on my G80 M3 that I had owned for approximately 6 months. Now, if you guys have saw my most recent video, you see that I had just sold that after 6 months of ownership, traded it for the Ford Raptor that I'm sitting in now. So what I wanted to do is just kind of a final wrap-up video on the G80 M3, give you guys my final thoughts and any parting information I wanted to leave with you guys about my overall ownership experience. All right, so first off, when we're talking about the G80, we have to start with performance. Now, the G80 is definitely a performance beast, especially if you get the competition xDrive. You're talking about 503 horsepower, 0 to 60. I've seen it on YouTube, people timing it in the low threes. And I will say that performance-wise, it totally lives up to the hype. It's probably the most insane performance vehicle I've ever driven personally. I mean, this thing is fast. It's very driver focused. And the best part of all, if you're going with the M3 versus the M4, you get 4 doors. If you're like me, you've got small kids, they fit very easily in the back. So, I mean, there's two sides to every coin. When we're talking about that much performance, unless you live in an area where there's a bunch of canyon roads where you can drive it around all the time, or you have a track nearby and you're tracking the car, there's a chance that you might get just a little bit frustrated with the car just because you're driving around day to day in traffic and you know what it's capable of, but you're not, unless you're willing to break the law constantly, you're not getting anywhere near where the top line of that car is. So that's one thing to keep in mind, kind of your area. If you've got a lot of canyons, if you can take it out on the track a lot, then you're going to fully enjoy the car and you're going to think it's worth every penny for sure. So yeah, performance is great. The customization is great. The fact that you can dial it back to where if you're just driving around town, it can kind of seem like a normal 3 Series. That's a nice touch as well to kind of have the flexibility there. So the second thing on the car I wanted to touch on is the styling. And I know initially there was a lot of journalists with backlash on the front, and quite frankly I think the front looks great. I think overall the redesign from the F80 to the G80, I think they knocked it to the park. BMW, unlike some other automakers, aren't going from generation to generation. They're not afraid to make some kind of radical changes, and I think for the G80 they were all for the better. Now I think we can still debate whether they should have shortened up the kidney grills a little bit, but the overall package that they made with those, the extra lines that they put on the hood, and just all the little touches. I really like what they did with the back end. I really like the taillights compared to some of the other taillights and stuff they put out lately. I think we just have to, hand it to BMW that they know what they're doing. I don't love, all the new stuff they're putting out all the time, but I think with the G80 M3, I think they did a great job, and I gotta hand it to them that it's a great looking car all around. And beyond just the exterior, the interior of the car, if you own any other BMWs, recent BMWs, it's going to be very familiar. I like that it's very similar to what we've got in my wife's X5M. The interior is great with the red seats. It was just beautiful. I know they've got some interesting colors, which you like to see automakers, especially in something that's supposed to be like a special vehicle like that, have some kind of interesting choices for the interior. If you get the carbon fiber and the full leather options on the interior, it looks, everything looks super premium. It looks like it belongs in a special vehicle, which the M3 is. Now, for overall ownership experience, I would say it was great. I had no issues. The only time I had to take it in for service was to get the initial break-in service done. Actually, I had to take it in twice. I took it in the first time and got the oil change done. So at the time I took it in at the oil change, the break-in service done, they were on back order for the rear diff oil. So I couldn't do it at the same time, but they got it in a few weeks later and took it in separately, and they knocked that out. And, I was in there less than 30 minutes. So, yeah, just a couple trips in for service. I had it for 6 months, so you wouldn't expect there would be much I'd have to do there. So the dealership experience was pretty good for the most part. I don't want to, specifically name drop anybody, but just, and this might save you guys some hassle in the future. If you are buying a BMW and you're not 100% sure that you're going to keep it for, kind of the full term of the vehicle, don't buy one of the BMW maintenance plans because, and they won't tell you this up front, they are totally non-refundable. I think now some of them are transferable. You could see if you're, trading it in a BMW dealership, maybe that might work out in your favor. But if you're trading elsewhere and then you're expecting to, like every other dealership add-on, get a refund from the prepaid maintenance you bought, the BMW products are non-refundable. So be very careful about that. Just word to the wise. I didn't know going in. I wish the dealership had told me, because there's no way I would have purchased it. Because at that point, if it's not refundable and you trade pretty often, to me it's pretty much a worthless product then at that point. So moving on to overall value, and I think this is where with the G80 the discussion gets interesting. If you're getting a base model of the M3 with the manual, or you're doing kind of a lower spec model, you can get it anywhere between 80 and 90. I've seen used ones like 2021 start to dip down into the 70s. If you can get one at that price, I think it's 100% worth it, no discussion. Just because of, like I said, styling, performance, everything's great with the car. Now, the one I got, and I didn't spec it out, whoever spec'd it out, they added a lot of extra options. MSRP ended up being around 100 grand. So then at that price, it starts to get interesting, because then you're moving up to where it's within reaching distance of a lot of really good performance cars, 911s, things like that, where then at that point, then I think it stops making so much sense. The one thing it's got over something like a 911 is if you're getting the M3, you've got 4 doors. So if you're trying to use it for a family sedan, that is something definitely in the M3's favor that you can't necessarily get in a 911. But also then you can also look at a Panamera. You're not in that price range. You're not getting into like a Panamera Turbo or anything like that, but it would be more like a base model Panamera. And I say that gets really interesting, because you're comparing it to a 911 that is probably going to hold its value quite a bit better than the M3s. I think with these first couple of years of the new model, the values have been really strong, just because there hasn't been enough supply to keep up with demand. I think as we're starting to see more of them come out, we've seen the market come down on them a little bit. I think it's going to kind of keep dropping, and you're going to see some depreciation on those. So with those higher spec ones, I think that's where the value proposition starts to be a little iffy. But if you're in the 80-90 range, I think it's a solid choice. So what's next for me in BMW M cars? That was the second M car I've owned. I own a M2 Competition previously, and I just put in an order for one of the new BMW M2s. I'm thinking I should get it probably early next year or sometime next year. I'm very excited about it. So it's interesting, the discussion leading to value on the M3 leading into the M2. I think the new M2 is a bargain performance car, because the way I've spec'd it, it's around $65K, which that's a full $35,000 under the MSRP on my M3. Same engine, slightly detuned, so instead of 503, you're getting 453 horsepower. But same platform as the M3. Same basic build, suspension, all that stuff. And unlike kind of I'd say the previous generation M2, on the interiors, you can tell they kind of cheaped out. That's where they did kind of the cost savings. What they did with the interiors of the new ones looks pretty solid. Like they did a really good job with the color accents and some of the stuff. Now, the squared off look on the front, I'm still getting a little used to. I think overall the M3 is probably a better looking car, but you're getting close to the same performance of an M3, and I got the manual transmission as well, which that adds a little bit to the driving engagement. You're getting something that's very similar to an M3 performance-wise for $65K. I mean, that's a bargain to me. So yeah, that's gonna be what's coming next on the channel. I'll still have the Raptor, and then planning on taking delivery of the new M2 whenever that comes in. So be on the lookout for that. Like I said, I just put the order in. I'm not at the front of the line or anything. So the guy I work with at the dealership said allocations for those are going to be kind of slow to come by, but he said they are actually getting their first, the first one at their dealership is in production now, and they're supposed to get it kind of first to middle of March, and he was going to give me a call when that comes in so I can go in and take a look at it. Hopefully I can get a couple videos or photos or something that I can share with you guys. But it's somebody else's car, so I want to be respectful of that. But yeah, just kind of sum things up for you guys. M3 ownership experience, I'm glad I got it. I'm glad I got to own it for 6 months. It was an amazing car. You know, we'll miss it a little bit, but I got to be honest, I'm looking forward more to the M2, especially the way I spec that with the manual. I haven't owned a manual in a long time, so I'm excited to have that. You know, it's kind of an extra toy on the side, you know, rather than a daily driver. Yeah, it's gonna be rear-wheel drive, so it'll be different from the xDrive I had in the M3. You know, with the M2, of course, the wheelbase is a little bit shorter, so you know, you would think a little bit more lively. Yeah, I can't wait for that to come in. Gonna be a long wait, but I'll keep you guys posted on any updates as I get those. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for today's video. As always, appreciate you guys joining me. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I will catch you in the next one.